let's move on to our second presentation. Dr. Gregor Torkar from the University of Ljubljana in Slovenia. Gregor works as an associate professor at the Department of Biology, Chemistry and Home Economics at the Faculty of Education in the university. His research field is in biology and environmental education, and across the spectrum from preschool to tertiary levels. He has a rich experience of outdoor education and as a member of a mentor and organizer of field activities and summer camps over a long period of time. And he's chair of the program committee with the Center for Schools and Outdoor Education in Slovenia, a big network of outdoor centers. Gregor's title is Direct Experience and Observation Skills of Children in Nature as a Basis for the Development of Early Science Education. Gregor, thanks very much and take us away.
Thank you. Welcome everyone, and thank you for the invitation. Thomas, you can put it on the next slide. I think it's the same. Thomas, you can just put it on the next slide. So let me just go straight to the point described in the title that was already introduced. So acquiring observational competencies is an important task in early education, not only due to important intellectual development that it's related to developing of observational skills, but also due to other fields of development like emotional and social development of children, or to put it more in fashionable way, for the holistic development of one individual. So my point that I would like to discuss today is the development of observational skills in an individual, if this is something trivial and effortless. So that's my first point that I would like to make. And the second one is how, when learning about nature, why this outdoor education is seen by so many researchers as the optimal way of ongoing, in this ongoing loss of human interaction with nature that was already mentioned by Tanya before me. So how this replacement of digital world, books and other vicarious experiences that we are facing, not just grown-ups, but also children, how is this, this fundamental change affecting also our observational skills? So the second point is that I would like to discuss with you some of the results of our research, just recent research that focused on comparing direct and vicarious experiences associated with children's development of observational skills. Next slide, please. So as you can see on this picture of steppes of Slovenia, it's important, in my view, that everyone is aware of his or her context, from which he's coming or she's coming from, because this very much then put a lot of subjectivity to our research, to our discussions. And just to say a few words about my context, I've been raised in Slovenia, which is rich in natural and cultural heritage. It has very high biodiversity. Natura 2000 sites in Slovenia are covering more than 37%. We have very diverse landscape with lots of forests, more than 60%, and more than 10,000 karst caves, going from high mountains in Alps to the Adriatic Sea, and to, on the other side, in the eastern part, sorry, also to the alluvial plains of River Mura. Next slide, please. My view and my starting point of the talk is also, it's this point that I was mentioning, it's also seen in the quote by Ferry Lanschek, our writer, It's a very beautiful quote that I heard recently in a radio interview. If I quote it, in the earliest childhood, we get those invisible glasses through which we look at the world all our lives, and these glasses color our views. It is probably permits this through my various works. So to put it figuratively, the point I'm trying to make is that let's talk about these invisible glasses that children are getting early in the childhood and affects our experience and our way of living throughout the whole adulthood. Next slide, please. So here is my daughter, Ella Sofia, on the picture. It's midsummer night. She's trying to sprinkle fern seeds into her boots, as the tale is suggesting that this will give her some superpowers to understand conversations with animals. Children are really seekers of explanations to make sense of their experiences that they get with nature. Young children fascination with the world around them is something that preschool education has to capitalize on. So early education is really relevant in this sense, to make science knowledge and to foster some development of process skills. But the question is how we can help children get those invisible glasses to be able to seek for these explanations of the world. Next slide, please. So children's observations and investigations of the environment enable them to identify and also answer some questions that trigger their curiosity, that trigger their interest in the world around them. And children's skills of observation develop with age, of course, and influence also on development of these scientific skills like observation. But the question of this skill is this skill, as I said at the beginning, something that is effortless, that it's easy to get, that it's trivial, or do we have to really develop it? My point is, and not just my point, but the point of many researchers that I kind of summarize in this presentation is that observation, looking around or using other senses, it's not something very easy. It's not just looking, it's not just seeing things, and it's often very specific. For example, ornithology, where you develop very specific disciplinary or field specific skills that are usually not or just partly transferable to other disciplines. If we go further, next slide, please. So up to now, I hope you understand my point that observation is something very important. Some initial skill in early years needs to be developed in order to help children to autonomously and also actively find and organize patterns in the observed natural world. And it's a crucial skill to further develop other skills in order to observe nature. And in these points from 1 to 4, children start with some initial starting observations with different senses and end up with really complex and holistic views of the world. And hopefully this leads gradually to the development of some kind of environmental awareness, which is a core objective of environmental education. So these intuitive observations that we start with, all of us, we are capable of these intuitive observations, are gradually replaced with proper education, with proper environment where children are growing into selective, sophisticated, and theory-driven observations. Of course, these are not the only observations, these theory-based that are important, but also important. So we kind of sort of develop from everyday to more scientific skills of observation. Next. Observations then play a key role through the entire investigation process, not just for data observation. And this is one downside of our schools, of our education in general. If you look at this figure, you see that observations are not only supposed to serve answering research questions, problems that someone detects, but also to identify them. So using skills of observation to identify questions, problems is something that is really underestimated in education, and something that outdoor education should offer more. As long as we don't see these patterns in nature, we do not see negative consequences of human activities in nature, or we do not see injustice or inequalities in human communities, we are not capable to respond properly. And that's the point I'm trying to make in this relation of observation as a way of identifying problems and research questions. So going to the next slide, one really beautiful example is Charles Darwin. I am a huge fan of Charles Darwin and his work. Evolutionary theory is without doubt one of the most creative, if not the most creative solution in science, as Stephen Hawking once wrote. His work as a scientist is well documented in several books. And it's a proof of how important these skills of observation are in development of this scientific view of natural phenomena. And you can see on this picture just a few important points in his development of observational skills and skills of research skills. He was doing experiments very early in the childhood. He was doing experiments with his older brother. He would be today, 200 years ago, he was on this period, approximately 11 years, and he was already doing some experiments, chemistry experiments in the backyard. And he was very lucky, being very interested in natural sciences, and very lucky to get to the ship called Beagle, which allowed him to observe this diversity of life, diversity of nature in several parts of the world, including all these important patterns that he observed, like fossils of extinct animals, or diversity of Galapagos, or diversity of barnacles. All these and additional experiments that enriched his knowledge after he came back. Very interesting is that he never traveled again after this. So he never left England after this trip with ship Beagle. And he was doing a lot of experiments in his backyard of Down House, focusing on pigeons, focusing on orchids, earthworms, etc. And all this culmination of knowledge, all these knowledge observations that he gathered together were then coming out as a book called The Origin of Species by Means of Natural Selections that, as I said, is one of the most creative solutions of humankind. Next slide, please. So how can we promote this? How can we help children get these skills of observation, more specific, more developed skills of observation? Progression from this everyday to expert skills of observation should be one of the central focuses. And it's, of course, it is central focus of many curricula, but still I think it's very neglected in formal and non-formal education. And these opportunities and ways how to do this are here listed as bullet points, and are all, well, all these bullet points have lots of references of empirical studies that we can talk about if I would have time. But I would just like to focus on this sketchbook for teachers that was published in 1950s in Slovenia. And it's a sketchbook that is helping teachers to do blackboard sketches. In that period of time, this was very important due to, of course, different times, no digital technologies, no means for representing the nature in the classroom. But now I would say it's again very important task to know how to sketch, to know how to draw, because this helps you with these observational skills. The same ways as writing diaries, asking questions, peer interactions, etc. Next slide, please. So now we come to this recent study that we published, where I would just like to emphasize why direct experiences are so important for the development of these observational skills. We did a simple experiment with 3 study groups, control group and 2 experimental groups. And in these groups, we were following the same content goals, but achieving them in different ways. In one group, if you go to the next slide, it will be maybe easier to discuss it with some photographs. In this experiment, one group of preschool children was doing all the activities in the forest, trying to learn as much as possible about forest organisms. And the other one was having the same goals, but doing everything in the kindergarten, through books, through video, video clips, through different board games, etc. What was the outcome of this experiment? And that's presented on the next slide, please. It's here written, and these main findings that we came out with is that we can develop these skills of observation in reasonably short period of time of 1 week of intervention, if it's properly, of course, introduced. And we also noticed that not only direct experiences, but also these vicarious experiences like magazines, science books, serious games, ICT technology supported educational materials could be beneficial and improve these skills of observation. But what is most important is that some of these experiences and the whole increase and persistence of acquired skills of observation is better if we do it in direct contact with nature. So outdoor education is also important, not just for gaining knowledge, but also gaining these skills of observation. And it's, as it was already said before by Tanya, of course, time is very crucial, that we have enough time. It's crucial that this is done in high quality environments, and those high quality environments are unfortunately today becoming more and more extinct. And what is more important, we should not neglect other vicarious types of experiences that can enrich or support these direct experiences in natural world. Next slide, please. So I'll try to summarize now and finish with this, this talk with the quote of famous psychologist, logotherapist, Viktor Frankl. Maybe some of you know him from his work. He was very in love with nature, doing a lot of outdoor activities in life, and he is one of the supporters of the theory of developing this value-based moral on experiences gained by art and nature. And he wrote, I quote, "A painter tries to convey to us a picture of the world as he sees it, and an ophthalmologist tries to enable us to see the world as it really is." So the take-home message I would like to pass is that we should be more ophthalmologists and help children create their way of using these invisible glasses, finding their own invisible glasses, those that will help them throughout the life to see nature and our position maybe in more sustainable way. And do not try to paint them your picture. Each child should have the possibility of quality, high quality experiences that will gain his or her own direct experiences, his or her own these unique glasses. Last slide, please. So just at the end, I would like to show you some of my work through these photographs, these visual representations. I try to somehow combine being practitioner and academic, trying to study this problem or this challenge, I would say, and at the same time practice it. I would like to emphasize that this work is not just mine, but it's a work of me and my co-workers, which I thank. And also, I would especially like to thank Irena Kokal and all other members from the program committee of the Outdoor Center Tășoară, which is giving me the opportunity in a way also to share my views on the outdoor education and implement it. And also thank you to the organizers of this webinar for the invitation.
Gregor, thanks so much for taking us through those thoughts. And I was having lots of flashbacks to my early childhood as you were talking about noticing the world around us and remembering how that was for me and who the agents were that helped me to pick up those glasses and begin to use them. My mother and of course my teachers. Please, folks, if you have questions for Gregor, please use the chat box. Gregor, we're at the stage, I guess, where so much scientific knowledge is very abstract. Here in the UK, we've just published a study that says that young people know an awful lot about the environmental situation that the world is in, but very little about their garden or their backyard, their own home. They're rich in knowledge and poor in experience of nature. And there is a move to try and reintroduce into schools a program, a qualification called natural history, to restore that balance. So I think your arguments would play very well with that group. But they're aiming that at 16-year-olds, 15 and 16-year-olds. And I wonder if you had any thoughts about how this, because your work that you've explored here with us has been with younger children, and that makes a lot of sense to me. But how would it progress through the educational life of a young person?
Yeah, well, I could refer to the work, of course, of many researchers on this field, but also practitioners. I mean, nature has in each stage of the development different role. And I would say that it's in many times, I've done a lot of research on nature, on life significant experiences when you are, developing some environmental awareness among grown-ups. And they were referring, to, of course, to certain stages in life, how this connection to the nature was important to them. And it's also for those that are in the, let's say, teenagers, adolescents, it's important, but it's in a different way. I did a couple, like 2 years ago, a study also with upper secondary school students in relation to the forest. And forest is for them also important, but in different way. It's more a place where for recreational purposes. It's sometimes also a place where they just walk to get out of the city, you know, just to get away from parents in a sense, or to you know, to be with the peers, you know. It has a little bit different perspective, but what is also important from the, let's say, from this emotional point of view or ethical point of view, is that each stage of the development has a certain rules, as already Stephen Keller was saying. And there is a lot of research supporting this, his work, even today, after so many years. So, like, for example, that this ethical relationship with nature, that of course has this invisible glasses already embedded before, but can develop, especially in this period around 12, and you know, so that certain areas, certain stages in the development of a person are very crucial for getting this connection. But not to be too long, I would just like to point out that it's, even if it's lost, it could be, you could get it back, you know. And that's the work that I would like to that was shown. I mean, I found it already in my PhD when I was interviewing grown-ups, where you see many times when they are really struggling with their values, maybe due to some illnesses or loss of someone close by, you know, they try to find a comfort in nature. So it kind of changes their perspective on nature, on values that they had up to now. So it's an important sanctuary in a sense. So it's not that everything is lost if you don't do it in the early stages, but it could be. I don't know if I answered exactly, but it's a very complex thing, and it's very difficult to say that it's only one possible path how to achieve it.
Well, you leave me with the impression very much how important it is in many different ways and many different acts. What a great loss it would be not to be aware of and able to access those ways of being in nature. Richard Irvin asks a question. He's referring to Steve Van Meter, someone I expect you know of, from the Institute of Earth Education. And he comments that Steve Van Meter claims that once we name a thing, we lose our curiosity for it. So, and how important do you think that learning the names of organisms is in developing nature observation skills?
I always try to, especially when I'm working with my students of preschool education, emphasize that name is the last thing we should talk about, you know, because it's really, it's a process throughout the skills of observations and throughout the, you know, constructing the concept. It could be a name, you mean an animal, for example. You actually start to compare things, synthesize things, and you are losing these small particularities. And when you come to the name, you actually it's a kind of a culmination of everything. So it's very important, you know, not to start with, but giving this, as maybe already was mentioned in a sense, this in the first lecture, giving it time so that each one can explore it in its own way, try to get a sense of a new experience, and naming this experience, put it into a particular box, reduces this diversity, reduces this possibility to get its uniqueness.
Thanks. In that answer, you've also begun to engage with another conversation that's taking place in the chat box about to what degree young people should be left to themselves to explore nature once they're given that dawdling space that Tanya talked about, where they can do that, and to what degree adults should shape it, or as you said in one of your opening slides, you know, what is our role in helping them to put those glasses on, or to find the right glasses for them? What is that process? What is that pedagogy there? That, I guess.
Well, I think we should never be like in the center of this process. That's for sure. I mean, we could be a facilitator. Sometimes our role is needed more than in other times, depending on the situation, depending on the particular person. So it's not one right answer, but for sure, you know, something that a child kind of construct on its own, try to build it on its own, it's better. But of course, we are in the situation where I can tell this from my context, where you can be in 5 kilometers in the wilderness, you know, in the forest, but it's not the case everywhere. So we are in different situations. Sometimes we need to push them more in order to start. They need more time. I found in my outdoor education experience that in the last 20 years, even in Slovenia, even though we have, I have a forest just in front of my house, you know, the family life is changed. The time hours of the family are different. Even though we still have nature, nature cannot be anymore so much a part of our daily routine due to some changes that occurred in how our families are working, how our culture is working. So it's very hard to, you know, to have one right answer. That's why I think outdoor education is very specific for each region or country. Has to work from the basis of the culture, of the way of how we see things and how we were going through the history.
There are more questions, but we are going to have to move on. You've been very stimulating for us all. Thanks again so much, Gregor, and hear that silent applause coming from everywhere. And I just want to say you've also been a great advocate for Slovenia. I think we all want to come and visit now, or visit again in my case, because my last visit was all too short. I think I'll bring a bicycle next time and take my time, do a bit of dawdling.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.